Coming up on this week's Salt and Sauce Chat Show.
He was always straight. Like, he would tell you if you're rubbish. He would also tell you if you'd done really well. So, and that's all you want. You just want honesty from a manager. You know, I've played with obviously lots of different players and managers that, you know, you hear stories about managers just not really being upfront and, you know, hidden agendas and tell you one thing but say another thing to somebody else and then want you out. And you don't want that. You know, as a player and as a person, you just want, you know, honesty. And, you know, I think everyone was wondering what type of player we were going to get, but wow, I mean, he was ridiculous. He's still, I think he's still the best player I've ever played with.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, I've been lucky to play with some unbelievable talent, but he was 33 when he joined us, and he was like 5 levels, if not more, above all of us. That was one of my proudest moments in my career, because, you know, you grew up in Scotland watching the Scottish Cup finals, and, you know, to get to a Scottish Cup final and with Dundee, the team I'd started with, was a massive achievement. And you've got, you know, all your family coming down, hiring out minibuses to get down to watch a game. And remember it being a roasting hot day, and just remembering that's what it was like when I used to watch on the TV. So it was something to savour.
Welcome along to another episode of the Salt and Sauce Chat Show. I'm David Simmonds, and on tonight's show I'm absolutely buzzing to be joined by ex-Dundee, Rangers, Cardiff and Aberdeen midfielder. We've got Gavin Rae on the show. Gavin, thanks for taking the time out to come on, mate.
No problem, thanks for having me.
So you're born in Aberdeen. You left to pursue Dundee at YTS level at age of 16. How was that move, obviously leaving home at the age of 16 and then moving to Dundee? How did that work out for you?
It was, to be honest, it was daunting to start with. You know, I'd been at home all my life, so I thought it was going to be a walk in the park, but it turned out really to be quite a difficult first year, just getting used to, you know, being in a competitive group with a lot of other players and away from my comfort zone of home. And I was actually quite homesick the first year, which was kind of a bit of a surprise to myself, because I'd never felt that before, but I wasn't playing particularly well, and being away, it was difficult. So it was a tough first year.
Yeah, do you remember how that move sort of come about, from you making the move from like sort of like a boys club into like a senior sort of setup at Dundee?
Aye, because so a lot of my friends had been signed on S forms with clubs. You know, it was S forms back in the day, and they were signed with, you know, some big clubs. You know, even down in England as well. And I was probably the last one of the group that I didn't have anything. So I was continually fighting, you know, to get a chance. And it wasn't until I was just away to turn, you know, 15, 16, leave school, that there was a Dundee scout in Aberdeen, and I'd started to do pretty well. And Jim Duffy actually came up to watch a cup final, a juvenile cup final up in Aberdeen, sorry. And myself and Jerry O'Driscoll were playing. I was playing against him. And he ended up offering us both the opportunity to come on to YTS, you know, there and then, really. We were down the next week and then signed. So that's kind of how it went for me, a bit different to some other players. And then obviously you go through the YTS at Dundee and managed to get a pro contract after that.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, Jim Duffy, he was the first team manager at Dundee at the time. When did he really start showing an interest in promoting you up to the first team?
It's definitely not in that first season, because I was absolutely hopeless. So I was lucky, you know, I got kept on for the second year. You know, at the end of the first year, you know, you've got a line of boys outside the manager's office, you know, all worried about if they're going to get kept on. It's a horrible feeling, but, you know, luckily I was kept on. They showed a bit of you know, confidence in myself that I probably didn't have, and just said to go away, work hard over the summer, work on this and this, and come back. And just the fact that I actually got kept on was the biggest confidence boost, you know, I'd ever had. So the second year, I played every youth team game, every reserve game, and managed to then work my way into the first team as well. So I played a few first team games. So around about the second year of YTS was when I started playing, or started getting involved in the first team.
Yeah, I mean, what was Jim like as a manager? Was he quite a hard guy, or was he like, would he take you under his wing, or?
He was tough, you know, old school sort of management back in the day was pretty tough. You know, he was sink or swim sort of thing. But I always liked Duff because he was always straight. Like, he would tell you if you're rubbish, he would also tell you if you'd done really well. So, and that's all you want. You just want honesty from a manager. You know, I've played with obviously lots of different players and managers that, you know, you hear stories about managers just not really being upfront and, hidden agendas and tell you one thing but say another thing to somebody else and then want you out, and you don't want that. As a player and as a person, you just want honesty, and whether it's brutal honesty at times, that's still better having somebody giving their honest opinion than mixed messages. So I really liked working with Duff from the time at the start, and then obviously I worked with him again later on in my career. So I always got a lot of respect for him.
Yeah, I mean, Jim Duffy eventually did move on. He was replaced by Jockey Scott. How did his management style differ from Jim's?
Similar sort of style. Maybe a little bit even more sort of old school, like and tough. But also the training was different, and I enjoyed the training with him. Him and Jimmy Bone came in as assistant, and they did well in getting a really good sort of atmosphere within the squad, and that was something that I really enjoyed. And again, loved working with Jockey as well. I thought it was great.
Yeah, I mean, in the summer 2000, Jockey then moved on. In came the Italian bunch, the Benetti brothers, Divano and Dario. Now, I take it their style was different from Jockey and Jim's, was it?
Oh yes, yeah, no, totally different. It was that was a culture shock for everyone. Everything changed from pre-season training, day-to-day training, style of management, preparation behind the scenes. Everything was totally foreign to us, and looking back, it's a great education, but it was tough at the time. Nobody likes change. Nobody likes change to start with, so it was tough getting used to it. But it was interesting. Let's put it that way. There was lots going on. There was an influx of a lot of players. A lot of players that had done well for the club got moved on, and it was totally different. And I struggled to start with, in terms of he didn't rate me to start with, and I had to fight my way in a long time to get in his good books. But once I was in his good books, he absolutely loved me. So it was a strange turnaround, but an enjoyable time because the players we had were awesome as well.
Yeah, I mean, some of the players that he signed were frightening. Like you said, you'd like to say Fabian Caballero, Giorgi Nimzanzi, notably, obviously, the Argentinian star Claudio Caniggia as well. Starting with Caballero, how good was he?
He was awesome. He'd been a kid at Arsenal, and then I think he'd moved to Italy on loan. So the Benettis knew about him and brought him over, and he was a phenomenal player. With me being a midfielder, like, the link-up play he used to be able to produce for midfielders, and his weight of pass and his football intelligence was great, and he was a phenomenal player. Yeah.
What about Nzanzi? Did you rate him as well? Was he up there as well?
Oh, definitely. I mean, Georgie was a partner for me. It sort of worked really well, and I was the one that done all the hard work and the run about, and typical Scottish sort of footballer, and get him on the ball and let him, do all his tricks and stuff. But he was, technically very, very gifted. Great lad as well. So was Fabian. Most of them were really good lads and really bought into the culture of a Scottish football club. And we had some good times with them as well. But yeah, Georgie was a phenomenal player. Yeah.
Obviously, we mentioned Claudio Caniggia as well. Do you remember the first time you met him when you welcomed him to Dens Park?
I do. Yeah, he sort of came in, and there was loads of rumours about him coming in, but we all just thought it was just going to be rumours. But he turned up. I think he used to always bring his son to training all the time. I think he turned up with his son. His son's got the long hair like him. But he was very unassuming, really quiet, just a chilled character. Lovely guy. Didn't have much English to start with, but certainly tried his best. And he was like that. A very, very relaxed character, overall.
Yeah, because he was coming back, obviously, to the sort of playing side of things after a bit of controversy, wasn't he? I think he was. Mm-hmm. Was he suspended by some FA?
It was 2 years he was out for. So, I think everyone was wondering what type of player we were going to get. But wow, I mean, he was ridiculous. He's still the best player I've ever played with.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, I've been lucky to play with some unbelievable talent, but he was 33 when he joined us, and he was like 5 levels, if not more, above all of us. Just the way he played the game, his touch, his movement, his pace, even at 33. So I wouldn't, it'd have been an unbelievable sight to see him in his pomp. Yeah,
I mean, did the Benetti brothers ever take you over to Italy? Any sort of pre-seasons over there?
Yeah, we done one. It was tough. It was 3 weeks solid. Normally pre-season you go away for a week or maybe 10 days max. because it can be tough. You're just sitting, not tough, but it's just, I know, you're in a hotel and it's not with your family and stuff. So, but they took us into the mountains in Italy a couple of times, and one, the first time was for 3 weeks, and it was pretty grueling. 2-3 sessions a day. You had to be resting in your room in the afternoon. You weren't allowed out to do anything. So it was pretty rigorous. And by the end of it, you're just desperate to get home and get back to sort of normality.
Yeah, I mean, when did you start to get the feel that maybe it was their time up at Dundee? When did you get the feel that maybe they were about to move on?
I think there was you always sort of hear the drums beating. You can hear some rumours coming about. You see them in the paper, but you hear it around the club and the city as well. And we were really inconsistent as a team. For what we had assembled, we should have done better. There was times that the football was unbelievable. It was amazing to watch, and it was really entertaining, and we got some great results. But it was too up and down probably, and then there was the talk of all the problems with the money and behind the scenes as well. So you could sort of see it coming a little bit off, but eventually, it went, and it turned out to be not as good an experiment as what it could have been, due to obviously a few things in the business side as well.
Yeah, I mean, so after 2 years at the club, they did move on in the summer of 2002, and you welcomed back the guy, like you say, that gave you the chance. Jim Duffy came back in. Were you happy to see him return to the club?
I was delighted to see him come back. As I say, I had a good working relationship with him. I liked I liked his style. It was quite good when he came back, because he'd obviously been about a bit as well. He'd went to a few clubs and seen things as well. So he'd sort of mellowed as well as the manager, and he was even better when he came back. I felt he was really good at getting, because he still had a group of obviously the Scottish core, but then some of the players, like you mentioned, were still there, like Caballero and Mzadze and Kishnashvili. They were all still there from the Italian time. So I think he'd done a really good job of marrying the two cultures, or all the different cultures together, into a group and a solid team.
Yeah, because in the May of 2003, you guys got to the Scottish Cup final against Rangers. What is your memories of that big occasion?
That was one of my proudest moments in my career, because you grew up in Scotland watching the Scottish Cup finals, and to get to a Scottish Cup final and with Dundee, the team I'd started with, was a massive achievement. And you've got all your family coming down, hiring out minibuses to get down to watch a game. And remember it being a roasting hot day, and just remembering that's what it was like when I used to watch on the TV. So it was something to savour for sure. Obviously not the result, but the occasion for sure.
Yeah, because you went down 1-0. It was an Amoruso goal, wasn't it? A big Amoruso header.
It was, yeah. It was probably the only time we switched off in the game, because, looking back and certainly from memory, the game we were well on top, or certainly, deserved a good chance of even minimum a draw, but definitely we could have won it for sure.
Yeah, did you go home maybe feeling that little hard done by, maybe in hindsight, like you say, the one time you switched off?
Yeah, no, a little bit. I mean, they obviously knew how to win, but they were there for the taking that day for sure. I think they'd won the double and had a few nights out, as I've heard in many podcasts since, during the week, which is even more frustrating. But yeah, they were definitely there for taking. And we played well enough on the day, but we just couldn't get the goal to get us off. We hit the post early. Barry Smith hit the post, and then didn't really have that many clear-cut opportunities. But yeah, listen, we're proud of obviously getting there, and it was still something I'll look back on fondly.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the next season, more big names were on their way to Dens Park. Welcome the likes of Ravanelli. Craig Burley came in as well. Is this when you maybe started to worry about the financial sides of the club and which direction they were maybe going?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of strange. Obviously the Benitez had left, but we're still getting all these big name players, and it was like the regime behind the scenes hadn't sort of taken notice of issues in terms of the business side. But listen, great for us to get to play with these players of that experience, for sure. But yeah, it was definitely question marks around about that one.
I mean, you mentioned obviously at 33, Caniggia still had it, and he was still absolutely superb. What about the likes of Ravanelli and Burley, who were maybe a bit further on in their career as well? How were they? Did they still have it?
I mean, definitely, they're still obviously good players. Craig Burley struggled with fitness. As you get older, it sort of happens. And I don't think he played that many games, just due to sort of little niggles here and there. Ravanelli similar, but I think he managed to sustain a bit more game time. Both good lads, and as I say, great experience for the younger ones to learn from.
Absolutely. I mean, then administration did hit the club, unfortunately. What's your thoughts about that? It must have been a horrible time to go through.
Oh, it was horrendous. It was like, I'd been there for I think it was maybe 8 to 10 years at that point, and there was boys that had been there, players, teammates, the same length of time, who got let go just like that, basically name read out, bit of paper, see you later, get your boots, get your stuff, you're gone because your contract's finished, which is incredible that you can actually do that. But that's the way the club was as a business, and it was a horrific time. Yeah.
I mean, I think there was 25 people in total lost their jobs. I mean, you're talking about everything for first team players right down to the tea lady and kit man and stuff like that. I mean, how did it feel having to see those guys lose their jobs?
That was horrible. Yeah, I was one of the lucky ones, viewed as maybe an asset at that point. So, I was lucky to hold on to my job, but it didn't make it any easier. My brother-in-law now was one of that 25. Big Jamie Langfield, who had been with from YTS. He was one of the 25. Servants, loyal servants to the club, and like you say, the backroom staff was probably even tougher because they do it for the love of the club. They're in that job because that's what they do. They support the club and they love doing what they do. And for it to get to that point that they had to go was not a nice few months or whatever it was when that was going on.
Yeah, like you said, you were kept on, seen as an asset. Is that when you maybe kind of felt maybe a move was on the cards for yourself, mate?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there'd been rumours the sort of this couple of years before. There's always rumours. I was obviously playing every week in the Premier League, and I was 23, 24, playing for Scotland as well. So you always thought there was a chance. When that's sort of when it accelerated, though, because I think clubs obviously knew my contract was up the summer after, and Dundee were going to try and cash in a little bit in the December and in the January transfer window. So.
Yeah, because that's when Alec McLeish at Rangers come calling. Do you remember when that sort of all happened, how it unfolded?
Yeah, so my agent just called me and he said, listen, Rangers are going to put a bid in, Alex is going to call you. And he called me. I remember I was driving home from my parents' house and he gave me a call. And obviously I was an Aberdeen fan growing up, and when they were flying, and he was one of my heroes. So it was pretty surreal. But yeah, he says, listen, we're going to put a bid in and try and get you here as soon as possible. I think they had a couple of injuries. And he was really trying to get us through in as quickly as possible to bolster their squad for the last 6 months of the season. So yeah, it went pretty quickly and pretty smoothly.
And was there a good sort of personal feel about yourself that maybe helped the club out a little bit, bringing some money in at Dens Park?
Definitely. That was definitely something. I wanted to leave by hopefully helping a little bit. And I left. I had the signing on fee that I could have taken as well from the club, but we left it. Jim Duffy was very wise in the way he sort of approached me about that, and just says, listen, you've came through the YTS here, and it would really help the YTS if you could give us, let's leave that with the club. And I said, yeah, obviously I get it. And so no, it was great. It was great to leave the club to get a little bit of money anyway.
Nice gesture, mate. Well done. So, after 223 games for Dundee, scoring 26 goals in the January 2004, you did sign for Rangers. Do you remember sort of first walking in that door, maybe at Murray Park at the time, and taking part in your first training session with your new teammates?
Yeah. No, it was funny because I'd done a medical because I'd had a small sort of hamstring issue, nothing major, just kept my hamstring tendon was a bit tight, and so I'd done a medical, and then I went for a fitness test at Murray Park, and I ended up doing a fitness test with Mikey Moles and Ronald de Boer, and I was like, wow! And it was like we ended up doing skills, and I was like, I'm aware of my depth here. This isn't my job. I normally just run about and get the ball and make tackles and stuff. So, but yeah, no, it went well, and then it was the next day I was training fully with the squad, so it was great. I knew a few of the boys obviously from Scotland and from playing against them over the years, so. They made me feel welcome and settled in pretty quickly. Yeah.
I mean, obviously, you mentioned the two high calibre players. There was obviously Barry Ferguson in the centre midfield role as well. Who else were you up against for a position in that squad?
So I think Fergie had left at that point. I think Barry left at that point. It would have been Arteta, Stevie Hughes, Christian Nelliger, Emerson. I can't remember. Ronald de Boer's a bit further forward, but yeah, that sort of calibre of players. It was pretty tough.
I mean, you're in the changing room there, with some big characters, say some top players. Who were the real personalities that stood out in that Rangers squad when you joined?
When I joined, well, de Boer, Ronnie de Boer's a great lad. Shot Avaladze, big character. The boys have got really big characters. Good lads, and really enjoyed obviously getting to play with them, and they were top players. So Yeah, apart from I obviously knew Griggsy and Burkey, the boys, some of the Scottish boys. I knew them anyway, and Tomo was there. Big Tomo, Stevie Thompson was there so as well. So he's obviously another huge character.
Yeah, I mean, like your first game for Rangers, it didn't take you long. You didn't come much bigger than this as well. You were straight in an Old Firm derby against Celtic. How's the sort of atmosphere in those games?
Like, it's probably, to be honest, I probably wasn't expecting it to be just as loud as what it was, because you actually can't even hear your teammates call for the ball, or if you call for the ball from you actually can't hear you. It's that loud. It's pretty. It's an interesting experience, and certainly something not many people will get that. Will be lucky enough to experience that. So I feel very lucky to be able to be playing these big games. But it was pretty hostile, certainly at Parkhead.
I take it there's a lot more added pressure in those games as well.
I think it's just the build-up, and there's definitely more added pressure because the results are so huge for the season and for the fan base. I mean, these are games that are measured upon, and talked about for years. So definitely more pressure with the build-up as well.
Yeah, and I mean, it wasn't the best start to your Rangers career, that game. After 30 minutes, you had to come off. Was it your hamstring that you mentioned that you had to be niggle with? Or?
Yeah, it was. It was just a niggling hamstring injury that kept flaring up. And I felt it go after about 30 minutes, which was super frustrating. But it's what it is. It's part of football, but certainly not the way I'd have liked my career to go, obviously, and start at a big club like the Rangers.
Yeah, no, you didn't have much luck with injury, mate, to be honest. I mean, once you recovered for the hamstring, was it your cruciate that then went as well?
Yeah, I got back and played 11 games consecutively for Rangers, which was, things were going well, scored a couple of goals, and then, done my knee and an ACL. So I'd never had any major injuries. I had a couple of little niggling injuries over my career, but nothing major. And this one was obviously a big one. It was my first operation. Didn't know what it sort of entailed. Didn't know what the treatment would be, and it ended up being obviously pretty horrendous. What's
the recovery stage like for a professional football player? Is there a lot of frustration involved when obviously you're going through rehab at maybe the training centre, you see the other guys obviously joining training? Is it quite a frustrating time when you're going through recovery?
It's definitely the worst part of being a sportsman is injury, for sure. You want to be free, and your body let you do the thing you love, and you're just to be half decent at. And it's not nice. I think the first part, once you get your head around it, the first part when you're frustrated and you're thinking, you have to get used to it, that you're going to be out for a long time. Once you can get over that, I think it starts to become a little bit easier. And my routine was basically in the gym all day, every day for about 8 months, working with the physio, watching the boys train out on Murray Park. Frustrated because obviously I feel like I was brought to the club to be able to enjoy that. So it is frustrating, but what you've just got to be so mentally strong and just get on with your work, and that's what I was pretty good at, just getting on, just head down and getting on my work. So you just treat it like your job, I suppose, and then make sure you get in and do the best you can for your recovery. And there's down moments for sure when you're not with the team and as much as you would like. But one of the boys will pick you up, or physio or the medical staff or the manager will pick you up, and you just got to keep going. And it's tough at times, but it's part of the job, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, you did make your comeback 18th of February 2006, started to put a bit of a run together in the starting 11. The following month, Paul Le Guen came in and took charge at Rangers. What sort of character was he?
Again, totally different, total culture change from obviously Big Alex. So again, tough to get used to start with. Even like doing the warm up, you weren't like to really talk to each other. You had to do full concentrating. Even when you're stretching, it was like, no, you got to be quiet and concentrate. And that's just not what we do. UK guys like to have a laugh and a joke and that, but it was still hard work. Still working hard and doing things properly. But he wasn't for that. He wanted it to be really, really quiet and concentrated, and little things like that. Change some of the dietary requirements in the chef in the canteen. Just little things. You're just like, mate, like, calm down. You know what I mean? Anyway, it happens, and just a totally different character to what we're used to.
I mean, coming back from injury and a new gaffer coming in, was that maybe like a fresh start for you? Is that how it felt, Gavin?
Yeah, definitely. I was happy. It was, in the outset, everyone, there was loads of clubs wanting him. Rangers managed to get him, and we all thought thought there was a great coup for the club. I think everyone did because of what he'd been doing in France. So, everyone was positive and looking forward to it. But and yeah, for myself, I felt it was a clean slate. I got on well with him early enough. I always felt to be a pretty good professional and dedicate myself to my craft. So I think he liked that side of myself and the professionalism. So I got on fine with him, but I know some of the boys struggle with just the way he was.
Yeah, because you come across being quite intimidating, like sort of his way or the highway. There was a story, obviously, with Fernando Rickson when you were in air 30,000 feet up. But do you remember how that all unfolded?
Yeah, I can remember just sort of, waking up. We were all obviously on the flight, and I think Fernando had a couple of drinks too many, and nothing major. But I think he ended up like having an argument with one of the stewardesses or something. And as soon as he landed, Le Guin's like, "Nah, actually done. See you later back home." And a bit of a shock to us because he was obviously one of our best players and biggest players, and I don't think it was nothing too bad, but it was pretty much his way of the highway, and that's fine. If you set your stall out like that, then that's fine. I mean, not everyone's different, and that was his prerogative to be that type of manager. So you just got to deal with it, and if someone is like that, then you've got to toe the line, or else you're out. Basically, it's simple as that.
Yeah, quite another controversial story. Obviously, this one involved you, the captain's armband, and Barry Ferguson. What happened here? Did you have a bit of fallout with Barry and then stripped him of the captaincy and obviously gave it to you? Do you remember that time?
Yeah, I definitely remember it. It was it was an interesting few days. So basically, that's basically the gist of it. He fell out. Him and Barry fell out. He stripped him of the captaincy. He pulled me in and gave it to me, and then we played Motherwell the next day. We won 1-0. But even like the build up to that was like it was tough. It was tough for me. Like I was sort of in the middle of it, and it was like no fault of my own. It was actually like a good thing because he obviously feels he can give him the captaincy. But I wasn't playing regular. I wasn't one of the top players. So I think for him to give that to me, it was sort of a signal as he can do what he wants, and didn't really put me in a particularly good position. But still, obviously, a proud moment to captain Rangers. But it would have been much better if it was in better circumstances. Put it that way.
Yeah, it must be a bit of a mix of emotions, like you say. Obviously, you were proud to be given the captain's armband, and then obviously, like you say, your circumstances in the starting 11. But was Barry Ferguson okay with you after that? Was there anything personal between the two of you, or did he understand it was just sort of Le Guin's way?
Nothing at all between Barry and myself. There's no hard feelings. He said you just got to do what you got to do. Fair play, and nothing at all between me and Barry. And it was a strange old few days. That whole thing was a bit crazy and a bit of a whirlwind. And I was just glad we won the game. Motherwell, Boydie scored, but it wasn't an enjoyable time. Put it that way.
I mean, soon after that, Le Guin moved on, and two Rangers legends come back to the club when Walter Smith and Ali McCoist. I take it that's kind of what the club needed at that time, was it?
I think so. I think just a bit of stability. I think a bit of knowing how big the club was. I think sometimes with Le Guin, we would draw a game or maybe lose a game, and it didn't seem he understood the magnitude of that. For a club like Rangers, we have to win every game, or else it's a crisis, basically. So it was like, we'd draw a game, and he'd be like, "No, relax, it's fine." And we're like, "Well, no, it's not really," And I think obviously bringing Coisty and Walter back, people obviously knew the club and the standards and the results that are needed. So I think it was the right move at the right time. Yeah.
What was McCoist like as a coach? Was he as laughing and bubbly as you see him on the telly, or?
No, he was. Listen, off the training ground, obviously great laugh and plenty of stories and really good personality to be around. On the training ground, very not serious, but definitely professional. Took his role really professionally, and it's actually quite a surprise, because like you say, everyone thinks he's going to be like this laughing and joking, and there is that side of him, of course, but definitely, really wanted to do his best as a coach, and it was funny to see that sort of that side when you weren't expecting it. But no, he was definitely dedicated to that side.
So, I mean, after 3.5 years at Ibrox, it was time for you to move on, Gavin. You went down to Cardiff. Was there any chance of you signing elsewhere before you went to Cardiff? I heard there was rumours about you going to Hearts.
I was definitely trying to get out of Scotland. Put it
Right.
that way. I'd been in Scotland for a while. I'd obviously had a couple of knee injuries I just wanted someone fresh, just a freshness. So I had a chance to go to Norwich or Cardiff. Jim Duffy was at Norwich with Peter Grant, so he'd obviously been trying to get me to go there, but I wasn't sure Granty was as keen on getting me down there as what Duff was. And when I went to meet Cardiff, they were like desperate to get me down and just showed me, a lot of love. And then I ended up going to Cardiff. Yeah, so it was. I was delighted to get a change of scenery, really, and try and get back to playing football.
I mean, there's some big names in that squad if you look back. I mean, Robbie Fowler was still playing, Trevor Sinclair, Aaron Ramsey, Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank. Did you settle down there quite quickly?
I loved it. It settled in straight away. There was a really good group of experienced pros and good lads, and a Scottish group, but mixed in with foreigners, mixed in with the UK group. So, yeah, it was easy to settle down. Really good place to live. Loved living there. So yeah, no, it was quite easy to move down to Bella.
I mentioned Aaron Ramsey there on that list. I mean, he was quite a youngster coming through. Did you know that he was going to kind of get right up there?
I mean, it was funny because when I was signing, I remember like the guy who picked us up from the airport. It was like he just helped the club with everything, and he talked about this young lad, and it was Aaron Ramsey, and he says, "Got this young lad. He's going to be like next Stevie G or whatever." The next legend midfielder, and I was like, yeah, no worries, and that. Just looking forward to seeing him. But he had just turned full-time professional that summer, so he must have been about 15, 16, and he was just started with like the reserves and the youth team, and then he would join in with the first team now and again, but he wasn't training with the first team every day because I think he took a little bit of a while getting used to full-time training. So everyone, I was like, I still wasn't sure. As soon as he got up to speed of training every day, it was phenomenal. The best young player I've seen by a country mile. He was like running first team training sessions at the age of 16. He was
Wow.
His mentality was untouchable. I remember he came on FA Cup semi-final. He came on it right back. He's never played right back in his life at Wembley, and he was like Cafu. He was like doing step overs. He was up and down. I was like this guy's never played that position in his life. It just shows you the character and the mentality behind him. What's driving him, and he was just so unfazed, but just unbelievable ability. Like he was phenomenal for a 16-year-old.
Wow. I mean, you mentioned the semi-final FA Cup there. On the 17th of May 2008, Cardiff made it to the final. You played Portsmouth at Wembley Stadium in front of 90,000 people. How was that occasion, mate? We touched on obviously the cup final at Hampden against Rangers for Dundee. How was the FA Cup final at Wembley?
Amazing, amazing. We actually done cup final song. You get the suits. It was an unbelievable time. My first season down there, so to get the added bonus of going to a FA Cup final was great, and just probably one of the only games in my career I've been nervous for. I think just realising the magnitude of it, like you say, 90,000 people there, beamed all over the world. Such a traditional sort of cup and one of the most revered cups in football. So it was a great run. I enjoyed the run. Even we started at like Chasetown, which was a non-league team, and we went down 1-0, and to get from that to the cup final was great.
I think I remember that one. That was 1-0. Kanu scored, but it was a bit of a funny goal, wasn't it? Did the keeper should have done better, if I remember?
The goalkeeper spilled it. Yeah, he's done a lot better. And it could have, again, another game losing a cup final 1-0, and it could have went either way. There wasn't that many chances in the game for either team. We played okay. We sort of matched them. They had a phenomenal team actually. That if you look back at it, their team was frightening. But we sort of matched them on the day. But a goalkeeper sort of error. He sort of spilled it to Kanu and he tapped it in. But it's still, again, something you look back on. I look back on very fondly, even though it was frustrating.
I mean, you said you enjoyed your time down at Cardiff. In 2012, you returned up to your hometown in Aberdeen. Was it Craig Brown that was in charge of the squad at that time?
It was. I did 12 games for Dundee in between that. I was close to going to Aberdeen in the summer, but then I think their budget got cut, or he ended up signing a player because he didn't know I was available. So I went to Dundee and played 12 games and actually scored 4 goals. I was on fire. So he came back in January, and that's when I went. So he'd been my manager at Scotland. He obviously knew about me and been in touch in the summer. So I was hopeful something was going to happen, and thankfully it did, and I got the chance to play for the club. Obviously, I supported as a kid.
I mean, obviously, you talked about Craig Brown being your gaffer at Scotland as well. How was that to represent your country? It must be a huge honour.
That's the pinnacle of your career for me. It's to get the opportunity to put on your national team strip and represent your country in your chosen sport, which we all love. Is no matter who it's against, every cap. For me, it's the pinnacle for definite.
I mean, we'll go back to Aberdeen. Craig Brown moved on. Derek McInnes come in. You remained there for a short term and then moved on back to Dundee. Did you leave Aberdeen on mutual terms? Was that a good ending to your time at Aberdeen?
Yeah, I mean, Dale. I knew Dale. Obviously, played against him and been around the traps with him, and I think it was a good decision, obviously, by the club to take him in. And I think we had a chat, a very open chat. I was experienced by this point, and he just says, "Listen, I'm just wanting to put my sort of own stamp on the team." And you're probably the toughest one to sort of say this to, because I was really close to thinking about keeping you, but I'm just going to change a few players. And I said, totally get it, totally understand. As I say, I was a bit older anyway in my career at that point, and no problems at all, and wished him well, and try to help him with a bit of the boys that were there, and letting them know who I felt were good players, and just try and help as much as I can. But yeah, it was totally mutual. Yeah.
And after Aberdeen, you returned back to Dundee. Was it always your plan to maybe finish up where it all began?
It wasn't, to be honest. It was, my wife's Aussie, hence why I'm in Sydney. I live in Sydney at the moment.
Yeah.
So we were planning on emigrating, and after my contract finished at Aberdeen, we were thinking about going then. But then John Brown got in touch from Dundee and says, "Listen, really keen to get you in. Want you to come in, club captain, plus you coach the reserve team." And that was a big thing for me, because I was getting into coaching, and spoke to my wife about it, and obviously with young kids at the time, and she says, "What's one more year? We've done it for." She was in the UK for 12 years, so it's like, "What's one more year?" sort of thing. So I said, "Yeah, true. Why not?" So ended up signing for them, which was brilliant.
I mean, you signed for them when they were in the Championship, and that season got promotion to the Premier League. Was there a bit of you that maybe wanted to stay on for the Premier League, or were you happy that you'd done, and you've already done that, haven't you?
That was basically it. It's we won the league on my last day, which turned into my last game ever as a professional, and it was on my choice, because I had it in my contract. If we got promoted back to the Premier League, that an automatic year kicked in. But you're just thinking, just weighing up, just thinking, I've played in the Premier League, hundreds of games, not really going to be proving anything. Might get injured, you might not play, might get frustrated. So I was just thinking, why not just call it quits now and go out on a real high, and that's what I've done, and it was good to be able to get that choice.
Yeah, so did you have a sort of end of season celebration party for getting promoted and a leave and do at the same time?
Yeah, so I had, because I was club captain, so I'd negotiated all the team bonuses for the year, and I'd said to them right to start, I says, if we get promoted, you have to sort of get us a few days away abroad in Ibiza or wherever, Mallorca, whatever. And at that time, they said, yeah, no worries, we'll do that. So obviously it came down to the last day, and we got it, and I was straight in just saying, listen, you need to get that flights booked. So there was about 20 of us went to Ibiza. It was amazing. It was just phenomenal. And I hadn't officially retired at that point, but I definitely was in my mind. So I didn't really treat it as a leaving do, but it was more a celebration for the league.
Absolutely. I mean, is that the kind of things you miss with the guys, like that team bond in the changing rooms, the times away, the flights, the pre-seasons in Italy? Is that the thing as a pro that you miss most when you retire?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you miss the football side and the competitive, having that competitive, edge in your life. But the most fun times are definitely in the dressing room with your teammates and the camaraderie, and that aspect of it it's tough to replicate. But I think since I've retired, I've remained in sports, remained coaching and playing. So it's something you always crave, and to totally go away from that, it would be tough. So it's certainly things you remember. I remember for a senior pro when I was at Dundee, says you won't remember a lot of your games in your career, but you'll remember the nights out. And he was right. It's definitely, that's more how you remember times in your career is the nights out you had rather than the game.
Brilliant. I mean, like you say, you still continue to coach and play for a bit as well when you moved to Australia. Who was that with, and what sort of level was it you were playing at when you went to Australia?
Yeah, so I played with a club local to where we live called Hakoah FC. So it's semi-pro level. So I don't know what you would compare it with. Juniors, maybe just a bit above, like Highland League, maybe something
Right.
like that. Yeah, like that sort of level. So train a couple of times a week and play in the weekend, and the boys get a little bit of money for it. So it's in Australia. You've got the A League, the professional setup, and then below that is the NPL, and that's what we were in. So we were
Right.
in the top level of NPL. So decent, good level, some good players, some really good experienced players, and players from all over the world. So with all the backgrounds you've got and the multiculturalism in Australia, so really good fun. But it's hard to sort of compare what level it is
Yeah.
compared to back home.
Are you still involved just now? Are you in the coaching capacity or?
Yeah, so I was at Hakoah for 5 years as a player, assistant manager and player. I played till I was 40, so I carried on playing till I was 40, and then gave up and just been head coach at Hakoah for 2 years. And then I moved to another club called Rydalmere now, and we're trying to build that club up at the moment. So yeah, it's still involved in the coaching 2-3 times a week, and I do love that. And well, I think I'll always be involved in some part. I also play still over 35s football. It's like association football, just like Friday night football, pub football with your mates. So still play that, and that's kind of. I mean, I'm not there to win trophies. Well, obviously, if we win, then even better. But it's more about the camaraderie and the team dynamic. That's why I do that. It's something you never forget.
I mean, because you have got your A license, haven't you? You got your UEFA A license. Was it always maybe your plan to go into management once you retired, or?
It was, I think if it stayed in the UK, I think I would have went into it, or certainly given a chance to try and go into it full time on a full time capacity. It's a lot harder here in Australia because pretty much an unknown, coming over. There's not as many coaching positions. There's not many professional teams. So that side of things, it makes it a lot more, makes it difficult. So I also knew when I came here, I was probably going to have to step away from the full-time football game, which was tough. But I was, I'd been preparing for that for a few years, so I could understand that as well.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, it's part-time football. What do you do now for income then, Gavin? I mean, is it Product Rocket? You're MD, co-founder of Product Rocket, a consulting company. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it's been quite an interesting journey. So I've been here for 6 years, and when I first came over, I got into recruitment, technology recruitment. I've always been a big tech fan. Sort of got into that, and then I've sort of pivoted into running my own sort of consultancy in tech. So we basically hire. So we hire people full time, and then we contract them out to clients in a capacity for months at a time, 6 months, 12 months, to help customers with their digital products, basically. And could be any company from Qantas to Zip Money and Afterpay are big clients as well. So these types of clients in the digital space.
Well, make us jealous because obviously it's a little bit cold, dreek and snowy over here in Scotland. What's the climate like over there in Australia?
Well, it's summer here, so it's normally sitting about 26, 27 every day. And some days you'll get the scorchers where it goes up to like 35 to 40. But you do get the rainy days as well. But yeah, you always know the sun's coming. I think that's the difference.
Obviously, the climate that we're living in at the moment, with the whole pandemic. One thing that the media are portraying over here is that New Zealand and Australia, they're really quite strict on obviously the whole COVID situation, and everything just gets shut down straight away over there. Is that the case? Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, to be honest, the government have handled the COVID situation very well over here. In my opinion, we're pretty much back to normality. Not far off normality in terms of living a normal life. The kids are playing grassroots football. I can go to the office, in the city any day I want. There's people in the office. You don't need masks, in the shopping centres. But like you say, they're very strict. So there was one case in Perth last week or 2 weeks ago, and they shut down the whole state for 5 days. So it's one case. That just shows you the difference, and that's why we've had so much success. And I think the biggest thing they did was shut the borders pretty much straight away. So anyone arriving into Australia or New Zealand is 2 weeks quarantine in a hotel. First, it was paid for by the government to start with, because people obviously didn't know what was happening. But now you have to pay that yourself, and you're 2 weeks in that hotel, governed by police, basically police escort from the airport to the hotel for 2 weeks.
No, I certainly think over here we could be doing something like that, because it's getting a wee bit crazy, some of the numbers over here now, mate. So
sad listening. I obviously see all the news and speak to my family, and it's pretty horrible situation.
Do you think you'll ever return back to the homeland?
Never know. You never know. You never say never. We're quite flexible. We moved about a lot when I was playing football. My wife sort of got used to that, and we're settled here. But never say never. Both the kids are doing pretty well at football as well, and the pathway in Australia is not as good as what it is in the UK. So if they continue to do well, then who knows?
Perfect. It's been an absolute pleasure, ladies and gentlemen. Gavin Rae.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me.